Hello, good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Elephant in the Room. And today is a Thursday, and we have another special guest with us. Good evening, Taranjeet. How are you?
Very well, Muihan, very well. As you can see, it's a super evening. I'm seated back at the patio, completely relaxed and really looking forward to today's discussion.
Yes. So this segment, as we were talking about, that we wanted to focus specifically for the reality that we are facing or that we are experiencing in moving forward. We started yesterday the discussion with our good friend, Mr. Zorab Chong, to look at his perspectives on actions that must be done by business owners today, as well as corporate leaders, to not only just sustain themselves, but to thrive, we agreed that we shouldn't talk about the new normal anymore, how to prepare, It's all about action, skills requirement, what we need to do and do it now, right?
Absolutely.
So we are always faced with this question then about agility. So what does that even mean and how does that would look like? So our next guest today will actually join us to answer this question. Taranjeet?
Super, super. And yes, the question of agility has been on the discussion notes for some time, and it's been on the discussion table, I think, ever since we started about 34 episodes or thereabouts ago. And today we're delighted to have Dhamiri Petra join us. Dhamiri is the head of customer insights at Accendo, a noted HR analytics consultancy outfit, and which is doing some outstanding work in the area of human capital profiling, fit for role, as well as succession planning, to name a few things. With a keen interest in job design and future of work, Dhamiri and his team at Accendo are pushing boundaries in delivering unique solutions for their clients through digital and technology lenses that you're using. With over 9 years worth of experience in the people strategy consultancy space, Dhamiri has worked on some of the largest jobs in the country, as well as impacting the global arena. Experiences in oil and gas, in finance, in airlines, in manufacturing and government. Dhamiri has recently delved into this area of digitization and technology, and it's an amazing field, especially given what we are experiencing now. Interestingly enough, outside the work, Dhamiri has also as much passion for cooking good food as well as eating it, which is basically all of us in Malaysia.
But his
But
size doesn't show that.
oh,
His size
well, there you go, there you go. It's virtual, so let's be
is
very clear.
virtual.
A self-proclaimed world traveler, and I can vouch for that. I've known Dhamiri for some time now. He can't wait for this COVID crisis to pass so he can show off his newborn daughter to the world at large. Dhamiri is a very close work colleague from before in my earlier days of old, and we are absolutely delighted to have Dhamiri here join us on Elephant in the Room. Dhamiri, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, hi guys, hi Taranjeet, hi Mian. Thank you so much for having me on. I've tuned into your shows every now and then. I try to catch most of them. Like the graduate ones, for example. And thank you so much for finally inviting me for me to share my thoughts and opinions.
No worries. It's our absolute pleasure, Dhamiri. And we are intrigued. We've got 30 minutes ahead of us, and let's start it off without any further ado. Muihan?
Sure. So we wanted to ask you a different question, but nevertheless, I think there was interest from one of our previous guests, Sharin Asmi, who superseded everybody. This is the first in our show. Before we start the show, he got a question already. So we thought maybe we should actually get that into perspective. And I thought it was a very good question, to be honest, to start with. And maybe I'll just flash it out to put that in. So Sharin asked me, for those who may just remind you, that is the CEO of Corporate Development Center. He was on our show about, I think, 4 weeks ago to talk about retrenchment experience. So he asked us to ask you to talk about Agile workers are whether they are on what they call a one-hand clapping situation, where employers, he feels, most of the time are very close-minded. They will tend to look at the individual who has been in finance, for instance, and putting them only in slots in finance, meaning to say no matter how I change this person, he will always be in the finance vertical or in the finance function, right? And if finance don't have a job for him, too bad. We got to retrench him, so to say, in that sense. So because this person cannot fit into strategy, transformation, or anything else. Therefore, his question is agility valuable only for mental well-being of the job seeker? Because in reality, I have a continuation here, is the reality is a lot less kinder. So in the sense that we can talk about agility till the cows come home, but in practical sense, no matter how agile you are, would you be given the opportunity to be agile, so to say?
Good point. It's a very good point. And I'm intrigued to hear Dhamiri's views here, being an expert in the field. But I'm sure we will address it in totality. So maybe let's talk about this as a whole, and then we'll zoom into Sharin's point in a bit. Muihan?
Okay. So with that, maybe let's look at the variety of the segments and clients that you work with. What would be some of the bigger ideas that you see as a key trait and behaviors of the leaders in this current reality that we are experiencing today? So what are the commonalities that you look at it, and what can you share with us on that perspective?
Very. As for first questions go, that one's very good. I'd like to just quickly talk about that whole reality aspect and the reality that we are in today. And putting aside the whole issue of COVID-19 and lockdown, the reality of today of everybody having to work from home, a little bit touching about agility, working from home, being mobile, this reality was inevitable. It was going to happen one way or another. It just so happens that the situation we're in with the lockdown accelerated that from happening. So what we've seen during this period is those kind of behaviors and traits coming out stronger than before. So those ones which are more successful, you see those who are more driven to be more agile, to be more adaptable to change. Whether they're working from home or working from office, individuals who strive to be successful will be successful regardless, because they adapt to the situation they're in and are agile enough to take on the new responsibilities for that. So from a two point of view, individuals striving themselves, being agile, and at the same time, organizations realizing that, we too need to be agile and adaptable to the current situation we're in. And those are the behaviors and traits that we typically kind of see are coming out stronger within the leaderships and individuals telling themselves.
Excellent. So, and what gets me, Dhamiri, is if I take that one step further, and let's talk about the future of work, which is an area that you are currently working in. This whole reality. How does this now look like to you, Dhamiri? How is this playing out?
Yeah, well, future of work, we can talk to the cows come home when it comes to future of work. It's a multiple angle point of view. Now, normally when people talk about future of work, they tend to look at jobs, right? What jobs are changing, what jobs are disappearing, what jobs are coming in. But one thing I do want to highlight that is somewhat overseen or overlooked by many individuals is actually what does skills mean to the future of work, right? Now, traditionally, skills could last you 20, 30 years, the kind of skills that you have. But as jobs are changing, as things are moving in a very, very rapid pace, so do skills. Recently, I read, I think from a World Economic Forum, saying that the skills that we have in the future, the lifespan now is about 5 years. Meaning, when you have a skill and you learn that skill, the value of that skill will be half within 5 years.
Absolutely, and that's why you've also got this whole lifelong learning approach that we are looking at, and it's constantly reframing, re-energizing, re-imagining where you are playing in this space. Now, can I ask you one step more? Who is responsible for this learning? Is it the employer, or is it the employee, or us as employees, as individuals? What's your take?
Yeah. Well, I know you've touched upon this subject before in your previous sessions, talking about learning and development and so on and so forth. But the question when it comes to learning and development, exactly what you said just now, is the onus of that responsibility. And you know what? The simple answer is everybody's, right? Not only is it the organization's responsibility to provide you the learning and development that you need in order to grow and be successful in the future, but the onus should also be on yourself, on the individual. If you know there are certain skills that you need in the future, or there are certain skills that are coming up in the future, and the company that you're in or the organization that you're in doesn't provide the ability for you to achieve those skills or learn the skills, you have to take that onus responsibility on yourself, pursue it. Because if you sit back and wait, you know what? It's going to catch up on you, and next thing you know, you're left behind. If I can just quickly quote one thing I read, and I forgive me, I am misquoting this, but I read recently where it says, you have to learn and upskill and reskill very quickly, but take your time, baby steps. Because you're not going to change from a coal miner to a data miner overnight.
Great.
I like it.
So thank you for that opening perspective, Dhamiri, and maybe I'll just stop here to maybe say hi to some of our viewers and friends for tuning in this evening. First and foremost, we have our friends from Perth, Surjit and Bhagwan. Thank you for tuning in as well. My good brother KJ Ko, welcome. Putri Liz Ismail, hi there. Welcome to our show. Mr. Chong Sulim, thank you for being here. And we have tomorrow's guest, Mel from all the way from Brisbane, tuning in today. We will see her tomorrow. And of course, we have Dr. Michael Heng here as well. What else? Who else? We have Megat. Oh, Megat is all the way from London. Oh, must be your supporter, Amiri. We have also Hamiza Jamal. Okay, hi. All right. So maybe just to quickly touch upon the overarching question that we started from Sharin, because I have another question here by Dr. Mike. Maybe you want to just give some opening thoughts to that before I ask you the next question by Dr. Michael Heng here from Singapore.
Correct. Yeah, so like I said, agility, right? Agility has to be a responsibility from both sides. And if we're saying that agility is where the future is coming from, where the future is going, and people need to be agile, be open-minded to it. Allow yourself to be agile in the way you work, and allow if you're in charge of the organization, no matter how big or small, you may be one of the big boys, you may be one a small SME, or just a startup, be open to agility. Because you never know what will happen if you open yourself up to those opportunities.
Okay, so let's look at this question by Dr. Michael Heng. So he asked, how do we then change the mind way of employers and rewire them for agile transformation? First steps, please.
Very, very, very good question. And this is one of the things where I tend to raise up to a lot of my clients. It's not about a single solution that will change everything. If you hire a chief innovation officer, doesn't mean your company is innovative. If you create a digital team, doesn't mean your company is digital. You have to be aware of what your employee experience is, right? It has to be embedded. It's no longer an add-on to your organization. It has to be embedded into your organization. And this is where a lot of some of our clients tend to fall short, is because they think, oh, if I hire a CDO, my company will automatically be digital. You need to understand your employees and where they're coming from, the culture that they're in order to embed that, to rewire, so to speak, as you said there, for transformation.
Okay, so before we go any further, Muihan, right up on top, I'm seeing a gentleman by the name of Cayenne. He's saying hello, or actually he says wow. So Kayan is a close ex-colleague of both of ours. So hi, Kayan. But coming back to the question around the assessment, and let's focus a little bit about that. We hear a lot about this profiling. Sharin Azmi raised that earlier. How do we ensure that we are doing the right thing for these individuals as we are defining fit for role? You talked about skills. How do we ensure that we are actually looking at the right type of skills? Could you just share some thoughts around the robustness that we would be looking at in this regard, Dhamiri?
Definitely. And a simple answer is, there's never a sure answer to everything, right? For example, 2020, nobody planned that everybody has to work from home, right?
Yep.
And policies have to change, the way we work have to change, processes have to change. So is recognizing the kind of behaviors and traits that you want in your organization, rather than thinking of what are the kind of jobs are we going to have, what kind of roles we're going to have. It's more about what the kind of people do we want in our organization, and what kind of organization do we want to be in the future. Once you nail that down, you then know, okay, these are the kind of competencies that I need. And therefore, when it comes to assessing them, I know what assessments do I need in order to identify those competencies. And then I then know whether this is the kind of person I need in my organization.
Okay. And so you're linking that very nicely to the talent acquisition area as well. So
Correct.
that then begs the question, does talent acquisition still matter in a big way, given the fact that I'm now moving into a very mobile, a very detached, somewhat aloof, and I mean that with no malice, aloof employee base with the giggers that are now coming out ahead. So how does that play out in your mind, Dhamiri?
Well, it plays out simply to the kind of people that we need in order to achieve what we want to do.
Yes.
So there is a lot of resistance, especially in our traditional, especially in Malaysia, right? We do have legacy issues and traditional ways of doing things. But if you recognize that within the gig economy, there are certain talents and skills that we need, right? Rather than the jobs, there are certain skills that we need in order to achieve what we want to achieve. And if these skills belong within the talent pool of individuals who belong in the gig pool, right? And especially nowadays where most people, when they join the company, they don't expect to stay more than 3 to 4 years, right? The short time, the lifespan in the company is very short. You focus on the skills that they have, what they can bring to the table, how much impact that can bring to your strategy and goals, and really then it becomes no problem. But then that focuses on how do I find those talents. So if you're focusing on the skills, then that should solve your issue there.
And just to highlight, I think even 3 to 4 years is a bit too long. I've seen situations where the CV reads as a 9-month to 12-month turnaround. And in the old days, I'm talking about way back, the first thing that comes across is these individuals don't have perseverance. These individuals are not robust. But right now, it's not about that. It's about how much of experience can I get from the 9 months. And you know what? I'm not leaving because I don't value, I'm leaving because I'm not getting the type of satisfaction that I can get somewhere else. So you're constantly seeing this movement playing out.
Exactly.
And that's quite apparent. Yeah, that's quite apparent. Muihan, back to you.
Yeah, on that score, I always joke with my clients who still talk about long service award as an employee benefit. So I always laugh, if you want to keep this benefit, then you tune it down from 5 years to 18 months, because on the 19 months you are still around, you should deserve an award because since the turnover rate is so changes so dramatically in that sense. Okay, so I think one of the important thing is we look at this new reality. Oh, sorry, shouldn't use the word new. We should look at the current reality with a very different perspective. And here we have Zorab for one question. Maybe I will just want to highlight it. So Zorab said, tagging on to Taranjeet's question on hiring talents with the key required skill, where and how much has the sourcing landscape changed today? Gig versus non-gig. I think this is a very interesting perspective to raise, because has our recruitment scene changed accordingly as well. What are your thoughts on this, Dhamiri?
It goes back to what I was saying of, firstly, you need to know what you want. If you start categorizing your talents into a gig worker and a non-gig worker, you're already automatically putting yourself, you're blocking out individuals who could be the right person for you.
Yes.
Right? So if you start focusing on what kind of person do I need, firstly, don't filter out gig or non-gig worker, because that will come later, right? The working conditions, whatever, how they want to work from home, in the office, that will come secondary. Firstly is, do I have the right talent in the right role in my organization?
Yes,
Good.
absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, Muihan, please go ahead.
Yeah, but I wanted to maybe just understand that point, Dhamiri. I think that is critical, and I think ideally that's what we will all do. I think in Zorab's case, if I can understand him further, he wanted you to maybe just comment on the recruitment perspective in that sense, because that is, so to say, is an elephant in the room, lah. You know, it is how have that changed, not changed, and what would be it in today's reality? If I may re-ask the question. So sorry to put you on the spot, but
no, I mean that's the elephant in the room, right? So, no, I mean, first, the experience that at least in an organization I'm in now, we are focusing on the experience of the candidates coming in through the acquisition. So for some, the idea of coming in physically to the headquarters, to the office, to do interviews, that in itself may already be an outdated process, right? If you can do an interview from home, you can do video interviews from home, and it's just as effective, and the experience for the individual can be a little bit more experiential, then why should you not adapt to that, right? If everything can be done online, you know, and you're quicker to responding, ability to identify the right talents better, why not? Don't block yourself because this is how we used to do things. Be open to change.
So I have a follow-up to that, and I'm cognizant of time now. I have a follow-up to that. Now, one of the things that drives us as an organization is the collaboration, is the ability for me to work with you. And I had, when you came on board, I had flashbacks of our earlier days in one of the national airlines as we were doing the restructuring, and the hours that we spent with the rest of the team in that room, going through the details and what have you. Now, that personal touch you will never get if I was sitting virtually, no matter what it is, in different parts of KL. So, there are certain things that I can and certain things that I cannot do in this regard. And we are social creatures, let's face it. So as much as I would agree with you, Dhamiri, but I also believe that there needs to be some tapering or some hybrid where it is not all one. And if I remember correctly, Andrew Lau earlier this week mentioned that it's about a hybrid model where I'm able to get maximum satisfaction from both the online as well as the face-to-face, but not individually, but together. And that's where it becomes more powerful.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. You do have to balance between the two. And at the end of the day, when it comes to acquisition, when you finally find the talent that you may potentially want to hire, I would definitely push face-to-face, right? You have to experience it. You have to meet the kind of people you're going to be working with, because, until technology and AI can replicate exactly what human behavior is like, people will know that something is missing.
Yes.
So exactly, you're right, Taranjeet. You do have to balance the two. It's just that the approaches now may be different.
Yes. And sorry, please go ahead, Mohan.
Go ahead.
So, and I also feel today more so than ever, it's not just about emotional intelligence. And I'm looking at a comment raised by Malati. It's not just emotional intelligence that comes to the table, but it's actually more social intelligence, because you've got now this very virtual world that we are currently living in, we are working in, but I still need to be adaptable and agile to get these nuances from the other team members who I don't have a feel or a handle on, except through these discussions that we're having online. So, you've got this other dimension that becomes even more critical as I'm defining what a new employee ought to look like in the organization. Dhamiri?
No, and exactly, you're right. you have to understand the dynamics of the team that you are in, and to simply say that in order to know how the dynamics are, the human relationship are based on one or two behavioral traits, then of course you're gonna be misplaced there.
Yep.
Right? You do need to expand that. It's just that with the ability to measure and identify certain behavior traits, you're at least taking the first step forwards in order to find that right person, rather than firing spray, right? Spray and pray. That's the term. Rather than spray and pray, you're now honing in on certain people who are the more likely to work with the team that you're in. That's
Agreed. Agreed. Muihan?
So I have one last question, but before I ask that question, I want you to give me a very quick answer on something related to what we were talking about, because you brought in the portion about data-driven and a bit of analytics as well. And I know you are also in this area. Maybe you can give some quick updates of how we are using AI for recruitment and selection, and what is the progress like? What is the drawbacks like, and what is the future like? Quickly, few sentences on that.
Definitely. First thing I want to say is about humanizing technology, right? People's approach to AI, digital, has been very, these are done by robots. We don't have any human elements to it. But here, where I'm working with, we are looking through technology and digital through the human lens at the same time. We don't forget about that. At the end of the day, these are people we are measuring. These are people that we are putting through AI platforms, technology processes. So let's not forget about that. And essentially that's where we're coming from, is being able to blur the line and merge human emotions with AI and technology in order to find the best results for our clients.
Great. So my last question to you, Dhamiri, is if you can give advice to our business owners, what are the 2 things that they shouldn't do?
They shouldn't do. Well, good question. I think I've already responded to most of them here already. But the first one, and I probably am repeating, is don't be afraid to change. Right? Open yourself up to change. Open yourself up to new ways of doing things. There's a new way to find people, do that. There's a new way to do success profiling, do that. Don't be afraid to change. And then the second opinion, I guess, is when you are then responding to change, don't think that a single strategy or a single person is going to be the one that takes that forward. Embed the culture of change, embed the culture of innovation and digitalization, whatever it may be, into your organization. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all.
I like it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dhamiri. We have ran out of time as usual. We are really thankful that to have you finally on our show, and thank you for being participative all this while, providing your inputs on the other end. We finally have you in the studio with us to share your thoughts, and we are very grateful for all your perspective. Taranjeet, you have anything to add before we close the show?
Sure. So I personally enjoyed the discussion. I've always enjoyed the discussion with Dhamiri. A couple of things here play out. One is the area around, and I'm summing up the discussion. One is the area around the reality is what it is, and it's the ability now to maximize usage of the richness of data that we're having, whatever that data may be. The second thing that comes across is the effective usage of that. Data can be sliced and diced in whichever way you want. We need to do the right things for the right reasons. And I'm responding back to Sharon's point very much earlier. It takes 2 to tango. And not only from an individual employee's perspective about his level of agility, but also from the employer's perspective about where we can fit this individual depending on the requirements and the demands. It is not a supply-driven discussion. It is a demand-driven discussion for the future. And that's something I've been always harping on. The third thing that comes across very emphatically from Dhamiri's point is the ability for us to now look at this in a holistic fashion. It's not what the machines have told us. It's not what the systems have told us, but it's actually a nice hybrid approach, taking full advantage and capitalizing on where each of these dimensions are bringing to the table. So these are my 3 takeaways from today, Muihan. Thank you.
Great. So before we close the show, I just want to have a quick mention of a few comments from our audience. One is from my good friend KJ Ko. So it says that I think embracing all the changes and recommendations that we have all mentioned here, especially talent hunting, senior or higher management would have to adapt to this new change. I will agree with you, KJ. I think they don't have a choice because the market has moved or the bus have left. So you're either on the bus or you are not on the bus. That's where it goes. All right. And then we also have Jack. Jack also talked about hybrid. I think he picked up on that point of blended approach, both digital and physical in that sense. All right. So with that, any last words from you, Dhamiri, before we close the session?
No, I just thank you very much. Great work, both of you. I mean, doing this every day it's an effort and a half, and I commend you on doing that. Even I struggle tuning in every day. You have to do it every day.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dhamiri. We'll see you in a short while. So allow us to maybe just share who we are bringing on next tomorrow, and she's of course with us today here. Let me just quickly pull back out the slides. So tomorrow, as we were mentioning, we have the pleasure to host Malati with us on tomorrow's evening discussion. Maybe Taranjeet, short word on Malati.
Absolutely. Now, Malati brings a huge experiential base on the area of human psyche. I've known her for a long time in terms of even from the times she was a student, and that's how far back the relationship goes. And it's amazing to have her on board, simply to hear her thoughts around what's playing out from a slightly different environment, that of Australia. Where obviously these sort of things are a little bit more evolved than what we have here in Malaysia, in our part of the world. So I'll be very intrigued to hear her thoughts about the whole facet around mental health and well-being and what that now means for us as employees, employers, and the implication, not only societal, but also at the work. So tomorrow will be an extremely interesting episode as we wrap up the day. Not the segment, but as we wrap up the week in this regard. Wihan?
Great. I'm also excited to tell the audience that we actually already have lined up our guests for next week. And it is also going to be a power bunch of folks that will share very interesting ideas and backgrounds and their perspective. Stay tuned to the announcement of who they are. We will unveil them slowly just to keep the excitement. So with that, thank you very much for all your support and tuning in. We look forward to see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Malaysian timing. Stay safe, keep social distancing, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.